Welcome and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Sony NUCLeUS, Groundbreaking Video over IP Imaging Capability for Post-Pandemic Product Design, sponsored by Sony Healthcare Solutions. I'm Sherry Trigg, Editor and Director of Medical Content with Tech Briefs Media Group, and I'll be your moderator today. Our webinar will last approximately 60 minutes, and there will be a question and answer period at the end of the presentation. If you have a question, you may submit it at any time during the presentation by entering it in the box at the left of your screen. Our presenters will answer as many questions as possible at the conclusion of the presentation. Those questions not addressed during the live event will be answered after the webinar. You may also download additional information on the NUCLeUS imaging platform by clicking the links under the Event Resources tab on your screen. In order to view the presentation properly, please disable any pop-up blockers you may have on your browser. Our speaker today is Paul Nunez, System Engineer at Sony Healthcare Solutions. He is an accomplished senior clinical applications consultant with more than 15 years in medical devices, focused on capital equipment sales, implementation, project management, and clinical training. Joining him to answer questions will be Mark Barron, Head of Engineering, and Marco Manjares, Systems Engineer at Sony Healthcare Solutions. Now I'd like to hand the webinar over to our...
Thank you, Sherry, for that great introduction. Welcome, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today and staying safe. Today, we're going to spend a few minutes talking about NUCLeUS, Sony's digital imaging platform, which is uniquely suited for all clinical spaces spanning university and teaching hospitals, community hospitals, ambulatory surgery centers, and more. NUCLeUS is video and imaging integration for healthcare. In the next slides, I'm going to take you on a deeper dive of some of the elements of NUCLeUS to show you the major hardware components, the user interface, and the process of creating and sharing content. NUCLeUS revolutionizes the way hospital staff create and access valuable medical video content. The platform is scalable and leverages the existing hospital network infrastructure to connect all clinical spaces, labs, doctors' offices, and more. NUCLeUS features simple, intuitive controls that let staff focus on patient care rather than the video integration system itself. And you can stream medical video directly into training suites with two-way audio and annotation so everyone can share opinions during the procedure. At Sony, we care about the patient experience as much as you do. So we've designed NUCLeUS to be software-based with regular updates that optimize the system and add new and exciting features. One of the most defining features of NUCLeUS is the ability to send very high-quality video and audio over the existing hospital network using tried and true Internet Protocol, or video over IP. We use the existing hospital network as the transport instead of running point-to-point dedicated video cables from each source to each display. And we leverage the features of most network switches to keep all that network traffic in the OR, so there's no chance that video from OR1 will end up on a switch somewhere else on your network. As you can imagine, in most cases, this results in much less infrastructure cost, both for existing ORs and new construction. You don't need dedicated conduit or dedicated space in the OR to enclose all that AV equipment. And you don't have to design a traditional video switch for a particular set of inputs or outputs. A number of years ago, I worked for a medical video integration company that made a 16 by 16 video switch. 16 sources or inputs and 16 displays or outputs. The problem with that is while designing a room, if I had 17 sources but only 2 displays, I could not repurpose one of my unused displays as an input. I would need to deploy a second switch at a very high cost, which would go mostly unused. NUCLeUS eliminates that problem. Any port on the switch can be an input, an output, or even repurposed altogether. The NUCLeUS IPC or IP converter is the heart of our system. There are plenty of video over IP encoders on the market today, but NUCLeUS is 100% built by Sony and designed specifically for healthcare. It's FDA approved and supports video from all clinical modalities that the user wishes to capture or broadcast. Think of any device in the OR. If it generates video in the visible light spectrum, we can connect to it. The modality IPC supports resolutions from analog video such as composite, VGA, S-video, etc., all the way to 4K, as well as 3D video, and features video standards commonly used in clinical modalities. The display IPC shown here on the right comes with a special enclosure that allows it to connect directly on the back of any display that supports a VESA mount. Each IPC connects to the hospital network via a standard RJ45 network jack or via fiber. And we support resolutions of up to 4K on standard copper network cables. So in most cases, it isn't necessary to upgrade the network infrastructure in the OR. This is the extent of the hardware footprint in the OR. One IPC for each modality and one IPC for each display. To help you visualize the platform in a typical suite, I've mocked up this slide with a single modality, in this case a microscope, a single wall display, and a PTZ camera in the ceiling. Our user interface touch panel is shown mounted on the wall right there on the right. The NUCLeUS IPC connects to the microscope and then to the network jack on the wall. The IPC is not to scale in the slide, but I wanted to show it large enough so you could see it. As I mentioned, it's connected to each video modality, and the display IPC is connected at the back of each display. That 21-inch touch panel to the right of the screen controls the entire system. The touch panel is intuitive and easy to use. It shows all the modalities that are connected in the room. In this example, we have 6 devices connected. And it can start and stop the capture of an intervention, switch the right image to the right display, initiate a timeout, and broadcast any source to a remote viewer. Any source can be recorded by simply touching the record button shown here in red or the image capture buttons in blue. Multiple sources can be recorded simultaneously and are available for preview within just a few minutes of the end of the case. The touch panel can live on the nurse desk, it can be mounted on a wall, or if necessary, it can be eliminated altogether and the entire user interface can be controlled from any web browser. So for example, a nurse computer that has Microsoft Edge or Chrome can have a tab open that completely controls NUCLeUS in that room. And we can also automate the recording process so the recording begins as soon as the intervention starts or with the touch of a foot pedal. Now, if you're an audio-visual integrator or if you're in broadcasting, you know that most of the functionality I'm describing here comes with a significant hardware footprint. You need an equipment rack with baseband video switching, controllers, video scalers, and other hardware to make it all work. And until very recently, all this equipment was in the OR, creating unnecessary heat, noise, and taking up space that could be used for other equipment more critical to patient care. Let's take a quick look at how easy it is to switch video to one or more displays in the OR. NUCLeUS uses one-touch routing. So simply look at the touch panel and select where the source and the display intersect. Touch that button and the image is instantly sent to that display. Any image can be set up to show a single image, 2 images side by side, picture-in-picture, picture outside picture, or if the display is large enough, quad or 4 images can be shown. This method of showing multiple images on one display can be especially helpful in larger ORs where, for example, the anesthesiologist needs to see the clinical image without taking their eyes off the patient vitals. In the case of a hybrid suite, we can send the large imaging display in its entirety to any display in the procedure space or in the control room, showing all the tiles the physician needs to perform the procedure. With NUCLeUS, you see what the physician sees. The NUCLeUS content management system includes powerful editing tools that allow healthcare professionals to create meaningful content to share with their peers, patients, or students. There's no need to download a large video file onto removable media or use third-party editing software, which can often be cumbersome to install and manage on a hospital PC. Our content management system allows you to easily locate, playback, and edit content by simply using the web browser that is already available on your hospital PC. Capturing an image during video recording automatically creates a bookmark on the video timeline, so you can get to that spot in the video with ease. You can quickly scrub through hours of video and select only those moments that are important to you. And once all your edits are done, you can create a new, smaller file that stitches all your edits together, or save individual files for every segment you edited. Your edited work can be stored back into the patient file, a vendor-neutral archive, a PAC system, or downloaded to removable media. And the original content is always preserved and secured, should you need to re-edit your original content at a later time. And only those users with proper credentials can access and download content. Access to NUCLeUS content outside the campus is also possible with VPN options provided by your IT department. NUCLeUS supports data lifecycle management, so you are in control of how long your content remains on the network. One of the main benefits of NUCLeUS is the ability to broadcast images from the clinical space. These images could be data from a respirator, vitals, or surgical camera, but may also include room video from a PTZ or a fixed lens camera or several cameras. This allows the remote user to be virtually present in the room, which can lower staff exposure to critically ill patients while maintaining quality care. In the case of a PTZ camera, the remote user can easily control the camera position for the best view. To protect patient privacy, broadcasting is always off by default and may only be turned on by the nurse in the room. This slide here shows a procedure underway. Broadcasting has been enabled, and we can see the remote user is logged into the NUCLeUS interface using a web browser and has 5 sources to choose from. To enable broadcasting on any source, the nurse in the OR simply taps on the source preview and then taps the broadcast button. That's it, 2 steps. This is how broadcasting works from the user interface. Multiple video sources can be streamed to local clinical teams, classrooms, sim labs, or any authorized location. And the reverse is also true. For example, a pathology lab can stream the microscope image directly into a surgical display in OR1, giving the physician the information he needs without breaking scrub to go to the phone. A physician that works out of 2 or more rooms can use the broadcast function to quickly check if his next patient is ready in the next OR, or if he has time to return to his office. And if there's a pan-tilt zoom camera in the OR, remote viewers can be permitted to control the camera for an even more immersive experience. Once the procedure is finished, the broadcast ends automatically, or can be ended sooner by touching the broadcast button again. So you can start to see the benefits of utilizing PTZ cameras in the OR, which brings me to patient monitoring. With NUCLeUS, and especially now in the age of COVID, it's possible for a charge nurse to quickly view 1 or more clinical spaces and prioritize a patient that needs immediate care versus a stable patient. And there's also the issue of cross-contamination as you go in and out of rooms, gowning and degowning, the consumption of personal protective equipment, PPE, not to mention the waste of PPE, which can be reduced significantly with remote patient monitoring. This type of patient monitoring also helps cut down on unnecessary patient staff contacts. Is the patient truly in distress? Do I really need to go in that room, or can I handle it remotely? So in this time of crisis, where there's such a shortage of PPE, it's all very important, and it makes sense to be virtually present. We can now leverage the cameras in the room to deliver an eye-in-the-sky overview of many clinical spaces at once. In this case, these 7 rooms are all set up for room view, but the user can easily change the source from a room camera to any other signal that is being broadcast in that room. For example, if you rolled in a portable C-arm or an endoscopy tower, you can easily select that as the primary source for the room you're looking at. And as I mentioned earlier, it's ideal for a physician that frequently works out of 2 or more rooms. This interface can also be accessed on a mobile device like an iPad or an Android tablet or on any client PC in the hospital. The physician can easily see the room status and can decide if there's time to see another patient or grab a bite prior to walking down to the OR suites. And clicking on or tapping on any room brings up the detail screen for that individual room, showing a high resolution image and any additional sources that are available. So this is OR1 from the previous slide. We see our telemetry view and our room view. Any source can be selected to full screen by tapping the button on the bottom right. Tapping again goes back to the original view. It's all browser-based and secured with login credentials, so only those users that have been granted access by the hospital can access the broadcast. So let's take it a step further. In this age of doing more with less, we can conceptualize a command center where you can have a technician or a nurse monitor multiple patients, which can include camera feeds, telemetry views, and electronic health records, as well as the broadcast control, where you can zero in on one patient, manipulate the camera, zoom in, and make a decision to dispatch a nurse right now, or go in the room on an as-needed basis. We can show up to 16 feeds in a typical large format display, like a 55-inch 4K, for example. But depending on the severity of the patients, the ideal number of feeds might be far less. We're currently working with some of our customers to determine what that number should be, but overall, NUCLeUS is very flexible and can accommodate a wide range of layouts to meet the customer need. Here's an example of a command center that we did not too long ago. You've got your eye in the sky room view on the left, your electronic health record in the middle, and then drill down to the patient view on the right. And down here on the desk, we have real-time telemetry monitoring. This is just one example. We can configure the layout to match your individual workflow. And again, there's no hardware footprint, no engine that needs to live under the desk. All the sources are generated by our secure server in your IT closet, far away from the clinical space. This is Mosaic, another tool in the arsenal for patient and room monitoring. Mosaic leverages fixed IP cameras to provide a live overview of up to 12 rooms at a time. Like all other NUCLeUS broadcast solutions, there is no local engine required. You simply connect a thin client with a web browser to a desktop or a wall display. You can have multiple views on multiple displays, so each user sees exactly what they need to see and nothing else. And it doesn't have to be just in the OR. With Mosaic, you can monitor any space that has an IP camera that's supported by NUCLeUS. So for example, a hallway or a storage room, so you can track down that endoscopy tower, microscope, or ultrasound machine. Charge nurses can quickly locate staff members or assets without having to pick up the phone or to physically go into a room. Hospital administrators can identify inefficiencies in housekeeping and monitor room turnover while ensuring compliance. Mosaic can also extend to a physician's lounge or an office so the doctor can quickly see if the patient is ready. Again, with Mosaic, the IP camera lenses are typically wide angle and fixed so as to ensure patient privacy while providing the staff with the room status. And if you want complete privacy, NUCLeUS privacy controls will ensure that no audio or video leaves the room. Annotation brings another level of functionality to NUCLeUS by allowing staff to mark up and add notes to any type of medical content. It's ideal for real-time consultation with instructors and physicians outside the OR. Annotations can enhance collaboration by allowing one or multiple remote users to simultaneously annotate, draw, or highlight areas of interest in live video. NUCLeUS annotation requires no additional hardware and can function using a tablet or a touch-enabled PC or the mouse and keyboard on a standard PC. NUCLeUS is the ultimate collaboration tool for webinars or live symposiums. It allows your best clinical minds to communicate and share innovative techniques and real-time insights in a highly engaged setting, utilizing one or more clinical spaces. There's usually no need to bring AV resources into the OR, and the entire production can be controlled and moderated remotely. In-person and remote attendees have the ability to ask questions and receive expert advice in a real-time setting. And the entire interaction can be recorded for later use. So in this example, we have 3 ORs performing surgeries for the target audience. One individual, perhaps sitting at the back of the conference room, has remote access to the NUCLeUS system. The moderator standing up there at the podium can tee up the next case, prompting the PTZ camera in the OR to be broadcast for physician introductions and perhaps a slideshow showing patient information. Afterwards, the clinical views are broadcast as the physician walks the attendees through the case. And as the case is finishing up, the moderator can request a view of the next room and so forth. Many teaching hospitals are already using some form of audio-video collaboration for their students, and NUCLeUS makes the whole process easy and affordable. We focused on content creation, broadcasting, and remote patient monitoring in this webinar. NUCLeUS can do much more. With NUCLeUS, you decide what you need today and grow the system as your video needs grow. This is an enterprise view of the NUCLeUS platform. Once it's installed on your network, it seamlessly integrates with all clinical and non-clinical spaces, conference rooms, other ORs, pathology and wet labs, simulation rooms, and doctor's offices. Not only is deploying NUCLeUS in your hospital possible, we make it easy. If you're a healthcare provider and you don't have the room or budget for a large infrastructure project, but you need this functionality, reach out to us, and we'll be happy to provide a personalized demo or set up a proof of concept to see if NUCLeUS is right for you. All right, we've come to the Q&A section. It was my pleasure presenting to you today, and we can now open it up for a few questions. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Paul. We would like to begin our Q&A now. So if you have a question, please submit it by entering it in the box at the left of your screen. So Paul, I'm going to start with a question for you first. Can the solution be integrated easily in existing hospitals?
It can. Existing hospitals typically don't have fiber optics connectivity in the ORs. They're using copper network cables, and NUCLeUS performs just fine using copper network cables and can deliver resolutions of up to 4K on the existing infrastructure. So yes.
Oh, great. Thank you so much for that thorough answer. Our next question, Mark, perhaps you can take this one. Can you broadcast to a computer in a conference room in the hospital?
Yes, absolutely. Since this is all IP-based or network-based, any room that has a network jack, in essence, becomes part of the NUCLeUS infrastructure. So whether it's a conference room, a lecture hall, or even student lounges, you can always broadcast from wherever you are, the operating room, to that lounge by just plugging in a PC, logging into that specific video, and then you can put it up on a big screen or just watch it on your laptop PC.
Thank you. I think Paul might have touched on this a little bit, but can you view the video streams with an iPad?
Absolutely. We have an iPad app that you can, it's free to download, that allows you to view the videos directly on the iPad from any of the operating rooms. So in essence, for circulating nurses or for other doctors who want to look in on the room, just with an iPad and connected to the hospital infrastructure, you can then see those videos. Of course, everything is user-based as far as security is concerned, so you still have to have user rights to be able to see those. But once you do, you log in and you would be able to see those videos in full high definition and 30 frames per second.
Thank you so much. Maybe you can also tell us what video resolutions can be streamed.
There's, any standard video formats. So anything from standard definition, which is still out there, believe it or not, to high definition and up to 4K. Any of those inputs can be, BNC connectors, DVI, SDI, HDMI, DisplayPort. Really, any known standard video can be input into the system very easily.
Thank you so much. Marco, maybe a question for you. Can a doctor access the recordings outside of the hospital?
Yes, I mean, the beauty of being on a network-based system, and usually the way that hospitals manage doctor accessing the hospital network, allow them in the same way that they will review charts or any medical information of a patient, they will be able to access the NUCLeUS system, review the recordings, edit cases, export data, do anything as if they were sitting in the comfort of their office in the hospital.
Thank you. So does this, also for you, Marco, does this platform work with both fiber and copper networks?
That is correct. One of the design constraints or the design stipulations when we created this specific platform was the fact that not every hospital will be able to rewire everything, and they still have to utilize copper infrastructure in order to transmit data packets. So we will work with either copper or fiber or a combination of both if that's the requirement from the hospital.
Thank you again. Can you tell us what are the bandwidth requirements?
The bare minimum requirements, we need at least a gigabit Ethernet network. Of course, we are seeing now that they're going up to 10 gig, but the bare minimum will be at least a gig network so that we can actually pass the video that we need to send over to the different locations.
Thank you so much. Is there a limit to the number of modalities or devices that can be connected?
So once again, the beauty of being a network platform is the fact that as long as I have a network jack or more network jacks added to a specific room, then I can actually connect either transmitter or receivers to add modalities or displays that I might not have planned for at the beginning. So we can expand with the needs as long as there is a network jack that is available to our system.
Thank you so much. One more question for you, and then I have another question for Mark. But Marco, if you have a video tower, a mobile unit, is there a way to do wireless Ethernet to network, or must we use a Cat5?
Unfortunately not. And the reason for it is because our system is going to be replacing traditional baseband video system. So a system that will connect a transmitter directly into a display. Because of how Wi-Fi works in a hospital and the possibility of having hiccups on the network transmission, we haven't really tested that thoroughly because of some of the bandwidth requirements of the problems that could happen. It doesn't mean that in the future we won't be able to do it, but for now, I think sending clinical data where surgeons are making clinical decisions over a Wi-Fi network, it's still a bit of a potential problem.
Well, thank you very much. Mark, a question for you. Can you connect to a Davinci Robotics system in the OR?
Absolutely. One of the things I didn't mention before when I was talking about the video formats available is we both do 2 dimensions and 3 dimensions. So a lot of the Davinci Robotics systems in the operating rooms, the doctor is looking through the console in 3D, and we've had a lot of success with our 3D monitors in operating rooms where we could take that information and broadcast it within the operating room itself. But additionally, through NUCLeUS, we can broadcast in 3D from the Davinci outwards in either 2D or 3D. So yeah, we've had a lot of integrations with Davinci over the years, and 100% we work with them in their highest resolutions.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic. Marco, another question for you. Does Sony offer on-site service after purchase, or perhaps preventative maintenance service contracts for purchase?
Correct. And we even go a step farther. I think Paul mentioned the fact that the idea behind this system is trying to reclaim a lot of the space that all the equipment will utilize inside of an operating room. We're taking the exact same approach to trying to remove unnecessarily people from inside of the operating rooms. Because of the fact that the system sits on a network and we request access to those systems remotely, we can actually troubleshoot, fix problems, do preventive maintenance, upgrades, technical support. I mean, anything that a user will be able to do from inside of the network, we can do it remotely. So yes, there is packages that we also include as part of the solution itself that will monitor the system. Whether it is 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, that's a discussion that we'll have with the end user on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you very much, Marco. Mark, I have another question for you. Do you see this product being sold more from an AV integrator supplier or from a microscope dealer?
So it varies. So we have both. So obviously microscope dealers are in the operating rooms on a day-to-day basis, selling microscopes for ophthalmology, neurosurgery, and other cases. But also we have AV integrators who are also in the hospital, and they might have experience in boardrooms and in AV within the hospital itself. So our system allows those dealers to actually go into the operating room, and we can now bring the operating room to the boardroom. So there is a nice overlap between what we do and what traditional AV integrators do, and also from the microscopic dealers. If they want to be able to broadcast from the operating room out, we can bring in AV integrators as needed to help with that, facilitate that.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. A lot of options there. I believe that wraps up our questions for today. And with that, we are at the end of our webinar. I would like to thank very much Paul, Mark, and Marco, and Sony Healthcare Solutions for this very informative discussion today. And I would also like to thank our audience for being with us. A survey will pop up on everyone's screen immediately following our program. Please tell us what you thought of our webinar by answering its few short questions. This webinar will be archived and available for viewing on our website, and an email will be sent to everyone who registered for today's program as soon as the archive is ready. I'm Sherry Trigg with TechBriefs Media Group, and thank you for joining us.